Good morning, David.
Morning, Lucy. Morning, Lucy.
How you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Lovely to see you this morning.
Yeah, it's lovely. Nice to have some sunshine for a change, isn't it?
Oh, indeed, indeed, indeed.
Thank you so much for this collaboration. I think we're going to get an awful lot out of our Q&A session with you. You've got a really interesting story, and I really wanted to kind of keep it compartmentalized, talking particularly about meal planning, because of course planning and budgeting is kind of my deal, and looking at health and wealth together collaboratively is really interesting, how one affects the other. Do you say, or would you agree, I guess, that when you're looking at your health and your well-being, that it has a really big impact on how you feel in life, and therefore the likelihood of you sort of keeping your life together financially and looking at your goals and your dreams kind of all works cohesively?
Yeah, indeed, and I'd argue actually to say it's probably the biggest priority. You really should, not should. I don't like the word should. Should has connotations to it, but it's something which would be a good priority in someone's life. The old saying, your health is your wealth, is very true here at the end of the day. Yeah. It's about actually prioritizing, because a lot of the things that people think that are important, like getting, their job, getting a house, car, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You can't take it with you, and it also doesn't really mean much to you in the long run. And your health, it has probably, I'd say, one of the biggest impacts on your life.
Yeah. Ever. I remember my nan and my mum always saying to me, oh, if you've got your health, you've got everything you need. You're like, yeah, whatever. But it is so true. So David, tell us a little bit about yourself. There's obviously a couple of pictures behind you that we can see on the screen. And just tell us a little bit about your journey.
Of course. So obviously when people look at me now, they see people call me skinny, slim, which is quite funny. But I was never always like that. 8 years ago, very different man. And yes, in case people aren't aware, some people do get this wrong, that photo isn't just a random photo. That was actually me. Yeah. So at my worst, I was 32 stone, unemployed, gaming addict, spent 14 hours a day playing World of Warcraft, been stuck on the benefits for 6 years, living with my parents, didn't want to do anything in my life. But it's a long story, but to sort of very briefly summarize it, had a wake-up call from a GP, very bluntly saying, Dave, if you don't change, you'll be dead by the time you're 35. And it was a bit of a wake-up call. And obviously, people often ask, like, how do they go down that journey? And it's a very long journey, so I can't. And it's one of the things I always say to a lot of people is they have this misconception around losing weight quickly and stuff like that it has to happen quickly. But people don't put weight on overnight or over a week, over a month, or a year. It happens over time, that gradual, so they don't realize it, and it has to be the exact same way. And it was the same for me. I didn't lose it overnight, but I was very fortunate. I got support to lose the weight. Went through a local sort of public health weight management service, but most importantly, I would say actually was my mindset shift. That's really only happened in the last sort of 5-6 years, where I've really changed a lot. And now I'm very fortunate. Now I'm fully self-employed. I run multiple businesses, and I will say I'm not naturally entrepreneurial. I wasn't brought up with that. I mean, I was unemployed for 6 years, so you can imagine, the mindset there. But now I'm fortunate to help people either realign, find their passions and purpose again, or my real passion is the weight loss, actually helping people manage their eating habits, because, as I like to joke, been there, got a size 6L t-shirt.
You still have that 6L t-shirt, and I'll hold it up occasionally.
I don't sadly have the t-shirt, but I do have an old pair of trousers, and they're pretty big actually. They're huge, like size 6L trousers. Yeah. And I always like to joke that if I was ever in a high-rise building up in London and it was on fire, and I happened to have the trousers on me, I'd literally just, and I'd be fine, parachute out. Although it's really weird, but I'd randomly have these pair of trousers with me.
I mean, why would you?
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. So let's talk about food planning then, because obviously we can talk about the whys and wherefores of it for a long time, and actually we probably will talk about this on another occasion, but to keep this video at a decent length, let's kind of make it very much around meal planning. So thinking back to when you started your journey, and thank you by the way to all the questions that we've had on my Facebook page. I meant to say that, tons of questions. I managed to whittle it down to about 13 questions, so we'll go through them as quickly as we can. So thinking back to when you started your journey for huge transformation, so some sort of 7, 8 years ago, when did you first start to feel your confidence changing?
It's quite interesting actually, because my confidence it wasn't until I could really notice that the weight was coming off, because it's a common issue for a lot of people is they don't notice the pounds, they don't notice the difference. And it wasn't until I could look at, say, the photos of the 3-month difference when I'd lost like 5 stone or 4 stone, and it was really starting to pile off of me, and I was really starting to see the difference. But I'd actually say my real confidence change actually didn't happen until after I'd lost all the weight. And that's quite interesting, yeah, because my confidence has been built up in the last 4 to 5 years, because importantly, I've recognized my skills and my talents, and people that know me know that I'm not a big-headed person. I'm very down to earth, but I also importantly recognize and celebrate when I achieve things. And it's one of those things that confidence is built as a slow but steady thing, okay? Because it's about recognizing what you've achieved and actually recognizing the steps you've gone through. So I remember my the first time I ever spoke in front of like 30 people. I had to stand up on a stage. I was very nervous, like most people, the stomach bugs. But for me, for example, I've now got to a point that I've been on live national TV, on ITN.
Have you?
I've been on loads of, Kent Radio, BBC South East. I've done loads of stuff like that, and I've done loads of public speaking in front of hundreds of people. Because I've done it so many times now, I'm confident with it because I can recognize that I've done it, if that makes sense. And I think that was probably the big shift for me, the fact of what you do something so much that you just recognize, oh, actually, I'm really good at this.
Your repetition makes you feel comfortable as well, doesn't it? Because you become used to doing it, like you say, so it feels more comfortable. You're not completely out there doing something crazy and scary for the first time.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thinking about then when you first started your journey and throughout those several years, did you plan your food?
Not really. No, not hugely. I used to have a terrible mindset, and I had no clue. And I'm saying I never used to know how to cook. I never used to know how to bake. I won't go into full story. And if you ever want to know this story, but ask me, come chat to me, or send me a message and I'll explain. But I've burnt salad before, right? And that is no joke. Okay. So if you ever want to find that story, come approach me and I will tell you the story. It's very embarrassing, but it is what it is. But I've had to learn so much, and it was just a genuine gradual thing where I started to teach and educate myself around nutrition and making the healthy choices and actually planning things better. I would say really a lot of the food planning's come in the last sort of 5 years, where I've actually started to recognize the benefits of it. Partly because of the work I do with clients, but also because I facilitate healthy eating courses for Mental Health Council. So I learned a lot from that process as well. And I've learned what people find hard. I've learned because they've asked the questions, because this is my challenges, Dave. So for me now, I don't think about it, if that makes sense. It's not it's a sort of I maintain and just don't think about it. I just do it without even thinking. There's an app I use for the shopping list. There's different cookbooks I use, stuff like that. So it just sort of becomes quite natural for me now. But no, I've never always been like it, and it's something which I've had to work on quite actively to get it to be normal. Not even about an active thought now, just a habit.
Yeah. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Well, when you're going through such a transformation, you're doing all sorts of different things to try and get that transformation to become sitting in your head comfortably, so that you can just get to a point where it is just natural, like they're talking in confidence, to a group of people. It's just practice, I guess. So somebody who's doing it for the first time, or maybe they have done meal prepping or meal planning, should I say, for their family for a while, and they dropped off that habit of doing it. What would you suggest would be a good way to think about getting back on track with that? Because sometimes people are in families where there's 4, 5, 6 people in one household, and that's a lot of shopping. That's a lot of food to think about.
I think the first tip for anyone is to be kind to yourself. Don't start beating yourself up because you don't do it right or perfectly, because there's no such thing as right or perfect. You know, it's about being understanding that you're not always going to get it right. I mean, I'm certainly far from perfect. I'm definitely not one of these type of health gurus that look at me. I go to the gym 3 hours, every day, and I go walking 3 hours every day, and I eat the perfect food. What's up? No, I don't. That's ridiculous. No one lives that life.
Good.
So that's definitely the first tip I give everyone. But I think first, when you're trying to get used to meal planning and getting back into it, is to actually be very clear about why you want to do it, and understanding the benefits to yourself and your family. Because there's a common misconception that it takes up a lot of time. It's a bit of a myth. It doesn't make sense when you actually do it. And there's lots of reasons why cooking takes more time, and in fact it's less stressful. But I think if you've got off the wagon and not got used to it, I think my first general tip for most people is actually just plan your dinners. Right? Don't think about breakfast. Don't think about lunch. Just plan your dinners. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because people overthink it and over panic about it. And if you've got out of it, just start your dinner. Start with your dinner. Start getting that used to it in. And especially if you've got multiple family members that are a bit picky. I mean, I know we'll go into this a little bit later, but it's get them involved. Is probably because if you dictate it to them, but actually then they're more likely to fight it. But if you actually get them interested, then it can make a difference. Definitely.
It's interesting what you said there around worrying about being perfect, and you don't meal plan, or sometimes you do, sometimes don't. And actually, if you've got friends coming over, now we can at the weekends, you know what, I will plan what we're going to have properly, because why wouldn't you? Because you've got, I don't know, say 4 or 5 people coming over, you're going to want to make sure that you've done something really lovely for them. But I do actually plan, it's just 2 of us, but I like to know that Monday to Thursday there's a bit of a process there, because I'm busy, he's busy, and I don't want to be getting to 6 o'clock thinking, oh my God, I'm starving, and what am I going to cook tonight? And that cupboard gets open and that bread comes out, or those biscuits come out, and it's game over. So I need to know, and actually I look forward to it, thinking, oh yeah, we've got whatever it is tonight, and I look forward to actually making it. And sometimes try not to Monday to Thursday have a glass of wine while I'm cooking, but it happens sometimes. And then Friday nights we nearly always have it's like steak night. It's just one of our things. And then the weekend we'll go ahead and just get a few bits and bobs with whatever we fancy. So there's an element of control there, but it's not so restrictive that it drives either us crazy or you stop doing it because it becomes a pain. I think financially speaking, particularly when you're looking at families and they're trying to feed their family for 80 quid a week or 100 quid a week, and that's got to include their cleaning materials and also toiletries and everything else, things start to look a little differently. And I think looking ahead to planning your dinners, for example, is perfect, because invariably breakfasts and lunches can be fairly samey without it being a real bore. So give us for instance, in terms of your dinners or your breakfasts and your lunches, what sorts of things do you shop for and eat?
Yeah, so a perfect example of our breakfasts are relatively simple, but very good nutritionally. So a common breakfast for us is we make homemade muesli. Nice. So a very common mistake for a lot of people is their cereals. They don't realise that a lot of shop bought cereals really are not very good for you, because they commonly put extra added sugar to them. And not only that, they're often misleading because of portion sizes. So for example, on the traffic light system on cornflakes, that is their suggested portion size. No, that's 30 grams. No one has that. No one has that. They always have more than that. So our homemade muesli is literally, it's very simple. It's just a bag of oats, a bag of big mixed nuts, and then we get some mixed seeds, mix it all up, give it a go shake. We've got a big tub, which is a good bit of activity anyway as well, giving that a good old shake. And then what we have with it is we buy, sometimes we buy fresh fruit, but that can be a bit expensive and can't always last. But it depends on the season as well, because some fruits taste better or not. and the price changes as well. But what we often buy is a bag of frozen fruit, and all you just do is you just get it out the night before, put it in a tub, leave it on the side, let it, and it will defrost, and it'll be ready for you in the morning. So we have that, and I have full fat Greek yogurt.
Yes, really good for you. I love it too.
Yeah, it's a good probiotic, really good nutritionally. There's loads of great bits in it. But again, a common issue with a lot of people is when they have their yogurts, they have flavored ones. And they don't realise that actually, again, there's a lot of added sugar in them. It doesn't need it. And if you want that sweet taste, get it from the frozen. Well, honey's a reasonable option. Obviously, it's a more natural sugar, so again, that's a good option. But to be honest, my preferred way is just fruit. You're gonna get the sweet taste from your fruit. So that's one type of breakfast, and what I tend to do is I have that every other morning. Okay, and then a common breakfast of mine in the morning will be toast with scrambled egg, poached egg, and it's obviously wholemeal bread. And a quick tip for everyone: double check your bread. A lot of big mistakes people make is they pick up multi-seeded bread or seeded bread, or that's marketed and branded, but it's not brown bread, it's white. And what's happened to one of the ladies in my courses, she got really upset because she picked up this so-called healthy bread and it had 3 sources of sugar in it. Doesn't need it. If the yeast isn't activated, then it needs at least 1 source of sugar to activate the yeast to make the bread work, but it doesn't need 3. Right, it only needs 1 at most, yeah. And then again, there's different options there. I quite like sometimes a bit of avocado, but sort of smashed avocado on the toast with an egg. Balsamic vinegar as well goes quite well. That gives it a nice kick. So that's a change up. So we change between those every now and yes, I do have bacon or sausages every now and then. Obviously, you cover off the fat. You use the George Foreman grill. That's always a good option just to help to remove some of the saturated fat there. Lunches are commonly for us are either tuna salads. That's we like our salads. And quite a funny story there. For years I used to say I hated beetroot. Couldn't stand it. Didn't like the taste of it. Couldn't stand it. It was really funny though. I never tried it. Yeah, but I never tried it. No, that's ridiculous. But now I love it. Absolutely, I love a bit of beetroot. I
can't stand it when it's all in the vinegar, but I do love it when you can get it. You can get it in a packet all done for you. But that's all it is. It's just beetroot, nothing else.
No, I agree absolutely. But we do have sandwiches every now and then, or we might get a nice fresh baguette and have some fillings in there. Sometimes what we like is to get romaine lettuce because it's quite a firm lettuce, and you can use that as a sort of because of the bread. At the end of the day, bread is literally kind of there just to sort of put stuff between it. That's kind of it's like a you're just trying to get it into your mouth basically. All these ingredients, that's what bread's for. So romaine lettuce is a good option there. For dinners is quite hard to sort of quickly because
I know
in a period of about 90 days, our dinners will probably be, I would say, in 90 days, we'll probably have 50 to 60 different meals.
And do you get your inspiration from cookbooks, magazines, make it up as you go along, mixture of all of those?
So I was quite fortunate. I've got to talk to this guy because I reckon I can earn some money out of suggesting him actually. But it was actually my partner that I believe that mentioned a chef. His name's Miguel Barkley. He's done a series of cookbooks called 1 Pound Meals. That's one of his books here.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, he obviously. What's great with Miguel Barkley is most of his books. I mean, his most recent one didn't do this, but most of his books are set up where the ingredients are based on 1 portion for 1 person, which makes it because a lot of recipe books do it based per 4, per 5, 4, 6 portions. Now, if you live on your own, or it's just 2 of you, that's pretty tough because I've got to work out.
You make it and then you eat it all for 4 people.
Yeah, and it's a bit hard. So, but what's quite good is the idea behind his meals is that they're all based on 1 pound. That's
pounds worth of weight or pounds in money? In
money. So they will cost you £1 is what he's trying to per person. That's the idea. So a perfect example of one of his recipes is you won't be able to see it because of the virtual background is pulled pork chili. That's quite and it's very simple meals. One of the ones that we use a lot. He's got a vegan book and also a meat-free book. We use a meat-free one quite a lot because we prefer vegetable meals in this house. So really good vegetarian option. This is so simple. Mushroom risotto.
That'd be really good to get that in the comments box underneath. So if anybody's interested in getting those, presumably available on Amazon or somewhere like that, then they can put
get
that
them
in.
straight on Amazon, definitely. I mean, perfect example, mushroom risotto is just onion, risotto rice, water, boiling water, stock cube, mushrooms, and a little bit of grated parmesan. Really, risotto takes a bit more time, but there's some very simple meals. One of my favourite meals of his, which I actually slightly adjusted, was he had a recipe for a leek and spinach lasagna. So I actually had adjusted it, and I add some bacon to it, and it's such a lovely meal because I home make the bechamel sauce, the white cheese sauce.
Easy,
really lovely. You put a bit of Stilton in that as well, a bit of that cheese sauce. That Stilton's got a nice kick to it, flavour. And do you know what? I don't think I'll ever go back to a normal lasagna, a meat-based lasagna. It's really, really delicious.
So tell me, David, when you're making things like a lasagna or those sort of big one pot type things, do you do extra and then portion it out and freeze some?
Yes. So very commonly I will overcook, and I'm aware that I'm my mother, she's a classic overfeeder, if that makes sense. I've learned those behaviours from her. But I've learned now that actually, the portion we put on our plate is a reasonable size portion. And if there's normally we have bits left over, and we put that in a glass container and put it in the freezer. Actual very important tip actually for people is to, if possible, try to get the glass containers for food.
Those, they're fantastic.
Yeah, because and they're, for numerous reasons, they're more environmentally friendly than the plastic. They might be more expensive initially, but they'll last for years compared to the plastic. And a common issue with a lot of plastic tubs, which is very off-putting, is that they can absorb the colours from the food. It doesn't look very nice and not very appealing. So definitely I would advise getting those. But yeah, no, I will genuinely overeat. So not overeat, sorry, overcook, so that then there is extras to put in the freezer. A perfect example is this week. This sounds really bad, but I'll make sure it makes sense. We had a load of ready meals this week.
You had a what?
We had a load of ready meals.
You did not.
There were meals that I cooked 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
no. I'm being cheeky.
Gotcha.
So about pretty much four of our meals this week so far have been meals that I've cooked 2 weeks ago that I left in the freezer, that I prepped, put them in the freezer, and it was great because it literally saved so much time. So just got them out, put them in a microwave. So I had a microwave meal.
David, tell me, have you got a massive freezer? There's a couple of people who commented and asked the question. I don't have a really big freezer. I can't do this properly. How does this work?
We don't have a huge freezer. I'm sorry, we just don't. So I think the common issue with a lot of people in their freezers is that they stuff it full of meat, they stuff it full of lots of extra bits, or they have lots of the pre-processed stuff. Sort of as a perfect example, in our household, we rarely eat chips. We probably have them once every 2-3 weeks, maybe. But if we do have chips, we chop them up with potatoes, put them in the air fryer, and it's done. A lot of people have bags of those. When you think of all the sort of chicken nuggets, the fish fingers that people seem to stuff in there, that's why your freezer gets stuffed out, I'm afraid. We have a very normal size freezer. We have a top bit which has all our bags of frozen vegetables. So we have that in there frozen.
Same.
Yeah. So we've got like our frozen mushrooms, we've got frozen peppers, we've got peas, sweet corn, cauliflower, broccoli, spinach. Spinach is a good one to have frozen actually, because if you get fresh spinach, it does not last.
No, and I always put, when I look at my spinach or kale even in the fridge, and I think, yeah, that's only got another day to go really. If it's unlikely we're going to use it, I'll stuff it in the freezer, because when I do smoothies, that's brilliant. You just chuck those straight into your NutriBullet or whatever you've got, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I think a lot of people generally don't look at what's in their freezer, and it does get stuffed out. That's why they don't have the room. I appreciate this isn't going to work for everyone. So if you're a family of 5, then that's going to, you're not going to have the room for that. But bear in mind, it's always possible that you don't, when you're doing the planning, you don't literally need to like freeze a load. And I mean, what I have tendencies to do is there are some people that they will do a cook day, like on a Sunday, they'll cook a load of meals and, put them in the fridge. So you can do that. We don't do that.
No, I don't.
We cook I cook in the evening, and if there isn't, if that then gets frozen. But you can always just leave one of them in the fridge, for example, as long as it's not, if it's meat, then it needs to be eaten with the next day. Don't reheat it more than once. Generally, those are the sort of standard tips. But you can have that for lunch as an option. And again, but I think people need to be mindful. They don't generally like, having similar meals. They want a bit of variety, which I appreciate. But it's about, I think probably the best tip I give people is check what's in your freezer, because I think you might have a lot of stuff in there that you don't realise.
Freezer surprise. What even is that? The labels come off it. No idea. Let's just defrost it and go with it.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is people have shopped differently, certainly in the last year, because of course people have been very reluctant to go to the supermarket very frequently, and lots more are getting food deliveries at home. So I'm guessing that the once a week thing has become a bit of a thing again, rather than going out every sort of 3 or 4 days and getting some extra bits. And of course people are busy and back to work, etc., etc. So I think that the planning element is going to help with all of those things combined, but it's just getting started. And I think your advice to just think about your dinners, don't worry about anything else, and just do it, just say Monday to Friday. You've got 4 or 5 meals that you need to think about for however many of you in the household there are. Have a look through your cookbooks, make a little list, and then actually you can cross purpose some of your ingredients. So if you're really clever, you get a big bag of spinach, for example. Well, that goes in loads of stuff.
I agree. You can use you can use it in meals, you can use it in salads. I mean, I think the most common issue with most people is they get stuck in a rut.
Yes.
They don't expect, and the thing is with cooking, and food should be enjoyed.
Yes.
Okay, it should be enjoyed, and meals are often a social thing. People forget that. Okay, and the whole process of cooking should be something that you enjoy. It won't be for everyone. Not everyone likes it, of course, but the problem with a lot of people is they heavily restrict their methods of cooking and their recipes, so they get stuck in a rut. Actually, it's always good to experiment. So a perfect example, in our household, my partner is allergic to prawns, so obviously we can't have paella. That often has prawns in it. But we actually found in Miguel Barkley's cookbook, he had a artichoke paella. So replacing the prawns with artichokes.
Yeah.
Never tried them before, but had them, and they were delicious. Really, a lot of flavour, very, very yummy. And it was quite exciting to try something new, to experiment.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, is that sort of interest. And I think it's taken it step by step. So one of my clients that I'm working with at the moment, she's now starting to get back into food planning, and she's actually picked up Miguel Barkley's cookbook. And last week, she sat down with her daughter and her husband. And actually, it's quite funny because apparently when the cookbook came through, because she ordered it from Amazon, her partner basically picked it up and was like, ooh, and they were quite curious and going through it and quite excited. But they were getting the child involved and sort of, which ones, let's go through each page. Do you think you'd like that? Do you think you'd like that? And I think people often overthink it. They panic and think that the meals need to be, this perfect meals, and that it takes a lot of time. But there are some really simple, quick, easy meals that you can do, and you don't need to overthink it. As long as you're getting some good nutrition in there, getting some vegetables into the recipe, then it's fine. It should be absolutely fine.
I like what you said there about involving the kids. I know that one of the questions that came through was that somebody has got 4 or 5 people in their household and a very, very fussy family. And I think, there are some of those recipes that are great, that you can substitute one thing for another. So, for example, I absolutely loathe and detest mushrooms. My other half loves them. So sometimes I'll make, for example, a paella, and then when it gets to putting those things in, they go into a separate pot, pan, and then what I want in mine goes in mine. So actually it's not that hard. I think you're right, don't overthink it perhaps, and involving the kids in the cookbook in the first place. What do you fancy, and perhaps you can make it together depending on their age, and just sort of post-it notes on what you're going to fancy for that week.
No, absolutely, and definitely, I would definitely advise getting the kids involved, not just in the food planning. I would definitely get them planning, the meals and the cooking, so they learn it because they get involved and invested. I would say though, a quick thing now: never take your kids shopping with you, right? And I know that sounds very extreme. Some people might not like that, and I appreciate that's not going to work for everyone. But there's a bit of a trifecta here. It's like right. Going shopping without a shopping list, while stressed, tired, hungry, with kids, when it's busy, how many people do you think are going to make good choices then? No one is. It's just ridiculously hard. And the thing is, actually, what people forget, the psychology, the amount of money that supermarkets spend on psychologists to understand the psychological behaviors of buyers. Most people don't realize that they actually have certain eye levels.
Yeah.
And there is this line, a certain level for a woman's, I'm sorry it sounds sexist, but it's true, and a woman's height, where the branded stuff goes. And it sounds, obviously, the luxury stuff goes at men's height, slightly high, because men are more like to buy luxury things. But they actually put the sweets and treats and stuff like that at kids' eye levels deliberately, because they know that a kid will walk past it. And I'm sorry, but a kid will not turn that down, right? A perfect example, right? I remember in a supermarket once, it was a Sainsbury's, and there was a family there, and this kid wanted a treat, and the parents said, no, can't have it. And the kid went mental, right? Absolutely full-blown explosion of, temper tantrums, stamping on the floor, and the parents were getting really embarrassed, and they were really, and they were trying to sort of get the kids, and in the end, can you guess what the parents did?
Gave in.
They gave in. And sadly, that kid's now learned that behaviour. But it's kind of unfair because it's the supermarkets, obviously, I sound like I'm a conspiracy theorist. The supermarkets, there's only one thing they care about.
Yeah.
So they will do whatever they can to manipulate you and your family to buy stuff. Yeah. So definitely, get the kids involved, but don't take them shopping with you.
My next she's absolutely adorable, and her two and a bit year old son, equally adorable. She gets food delivered. There is no time when she's taking that child shopping with her. Yeah, I don't blame her either. But yeah, I mean, we shop with our eyes, don't we? Especially when you're hungry. That's just the absolute worst thing. So just a last couple of questions then, David. I think we've covered around a little bit about moderation. I think we've talked a bit about that. And we talked about getting into a rut. And making some poor choices can actually become quite the norm. And I guess in terms of getting out of the habit, starting small, perhaps just looking at those evening meals just to start yourself off and work from there. So I guess my last question is, as with anything in life, when you make any decision, it's kind of all in the mind, isn't it? It's all how we think and what we believe. So when you're when you're working with your clients, how much of the time would you say it's about working with their belief system versus the actual practicalities of applying that to their daily life?
So when I work with clients, I make a point of trying to understand their behaviors and their habits and their choices, because we've all got to understand that we are a product of our experiences and the people we're connected with. And I think people commonly forget that our decisions that we make food-wise are based on a sort of a internal system of choices that we feel connected with based on previous experiences. I mean, a perfect example of the situation on a personal level is, I remember, because I was quite heavily bullied when I was younger, I remember coming home once to my mum and absolutely crying my eyes out because I've been bullied. And my mum, this isn't my mum's fault, but she went to me, well, Dave, okay, look, I'll go get you some cakes, you'll feel better. And it meant that I quickly learned this belief system that actually food would help me emotionally, it would make me feel better. And it's not my mum's fault. It was a learned behavior from her parents and how she learned to manage it. But I think for me, it's one of the things I do with clients is I do a food diary, but I do it a bit more in the sense that there's a section for what they were doing, their emotions, their mood, what was going on, because it's very important that you identify your behaviors. And one of the, I suppose this leads back to the question earlier, is one of the tips I'll always give people is to really identify why you're eating that food. And I'll give you a good example, story of this. So me and a partner, we go to the gym and swimming regularly. And this was in November last year. We went to the gym and we walked back home. And I said, look, let's pop into Costa's. And this is leading to other questions. People saying about, do you have moderation? Do you actually, have a normal lifestyle? And we do. I don't eat perfectly all the time. And there was a treat in I forgot the type of, like a Belgian bun, I think. And I sat there and thought, I really fancy that. And I was like, I might get one. And my partner, bless him, very, very quickly went, why do you want it? And he's challenged why you want to have it. I was like, good question. Let's think about it. So let's think about
yummy.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it was quite funny because the person serving us gave us a really weird look. But I said, okay, let's think about it. I said, my normal triggers and habits, the triggers to me to want to eat is either boredom, to feeling down, or stressed. I'm not bored because we just come from the gym, and we're going to sit down and have coffee and have a chat and just spend time together. I'm not stressed because I'm actually feeling quite good. I'm feeling positive in the gym. I'm not feeling down. I'm not feeling, sort of down at all. And then I went, actually, when did I last have a Belgian bun? Well, the last time I had one was about 3 months ago. Okay. Do you know what? I think it's fine. And then I had it. And that's people don't often think about the process. And that's why with clients, I've found it's identifying those triggers and actually identifying why they do what they do. And I think it's something which is quite hard to do internally. Generally, I think you need someone from an external person. So you could question, like, would I have really thought about it if a partner hadn't have gone, actually, what's the reason here? What's the thinking behind it? But I think people, this sounds quite horrible, but it's true. Human beings are naturally, we go for the path of least resistance. We always do. We will choose if we had a choice between column A and column B, and column A is really easy and column B is really hard, most people will go for column A because it's easy, because we don't need to think about it, because we want the easy fixes and easy solutions. But the simple fact of it is, when it comes to a behavior change, a lifestyle change, I'm sorry to say, but it has to, by definition, be a challenge.
Yeah,
it's not something which happens, and it has to be something which requires effort. So again, it's important, if you're considering adopting a lifestyle change, that you need to seriously consider your why. Why are you wanting to do this lifestyle change? Is it because the doctor said that you're a bit overweight, you need to make a change? Or is that going to be enough? There needs to be a bit more of an emphasis about why. Commonly, for a lot of people, it might be because of a health scare. In actual fact, a business colleague recently called me because to have a bit of a chat and advice, because they recently got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That's often a big driver for people.
Yeah.
But it's being very clear on about why you might want to go on this journey and why you might want to make those changes. Because if you're not clear on that why, you're not going to stick to it.
Yeah, that's true. And if you're like me, you love instant gratification. So it's just a thought, oh yeah, lovely, I'll have that. And it's a quick decision. And then sometimes I feel guilty. I think I probably shouldn't have eaten that. And it's funny, isn't it? The mind games you play with your with yourself, it's crazy. But I think, yeah, the going shopping, making your life as easy as possible, either doing your online shopping with that list, or mentally going with your list. And it's all right just to get 1 or 2 little bits that are in addition to, but it's when you are piling those biscuits in, because let's face it, you are what you eat. It's that old adage, isn't it? And if you looked in someone's fridge, opened up their cupboards, you'd be like, I know exactly why you look the way you look, because I can see what you're consuming. If it's in your cupboard, it's going to get eaten.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our household, we never in our normal food shop buy crisps, sweets, chocolate. We just don't buy them. Okay. And we do have them, don't get me wrong. So it might be that we say, actually, I fancy a treat, haven't had it in a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever. I have to actively go out and get it.
That's interesting.
Right? That's an interesting psychological thing, a shift. Because, once, and then this is a perfect example. One of my clients once, she regularly every night was having about 4 to 6 bits of chocolate every night, milk chocolate, and she's diabetic as well. And so I started to challenge her a little bit about this. So why are you having that chocolate? And she was like, well, because I just normally have it in the evening. I was like, okay. So I said, so the question is now is that chocolate a treat or a habit?
Yeah.
She was like, I've never really thought about it. And she went away in the next session. She went, I've really thought about it, Dave. And she said, you're right. It's not a treat anymore. Because I just have it there regularly. So again, started making some shifts and changes, getting it down, changing it to dark chocolate because that's better for it's less sugar. Very bitter. Obviously, you need to go for like 70 to 80% dark chocolate.
You get used to it though. I like it.
No, I do. But again, it's about understanding the mindset around treats and around desserts, and there's also there's another layer to it around social interaction and the implications. So, for example, say me and you were to meet in person, and I baked you a cake. Socially, that's pretty awkward for you to turn that down. No, I'm not going to have it. Thank you. So what you could do is have a small slice, and then you've done your social thing, but you've still had the treat, but not gone mad. That's the point here.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you so much. We could talk about all sorts of stuff for another couple of hours, but of course we wanted to try and keep this fairly concise and talk about meal planning from a health perspective as well as a wealth perspective. So thank you so much for your time. On the website, on my website, I've got a couple of meal planning tools that you can use. Buy and download those if that's useful. And also, David, how is someone going to be able to work with you if they like what you've said so far and want to have a bit more of a chat with you? What is that process like?
Of course. So if they want to get in contact with me, go to my webpage, breakthroughlifecoaching.co.uk. Come talk to me. Absolutely, there's a free consultation. We can have a chat. Normally with clients, it's a weekly session-based thing for half an hour. It's about we normally initially look at food diaries, working together on that, trying to understand the behaviours and habits there, and then we start shifting more towards the actual planning the food as a online food planning and diary that I use. So I have an active, so I can see a live, feed as it goes, and that means that I'm able to give support as and when is needed. And I think what's quite nice for a lot of clients that I found is they've come to find that actually the time, that half hour is a for them to be held accountable. One good example was one of my clients. She used to keep going for a treat, and her partner would whenever she went to go to pick it up, the partner would be, "You've got to tell David about it on Monday," and it's like, but again, it was for me with clients, and this is a very important rule for everyone, but I think I promote very heavily with my clients, is the 80-20 rule. As long as you're eating nutritionally healthy food 80% of the time, then it's okay if that 20% you have a bit of a wobble, or you have a takeaway, or you have a treat, because you can't eat perfect all the time.
No, of course you can't. Lovely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and we'll chat again about other things. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right. Cheers, Lucy.
Bye.